They had already made their
They
decision.
made a decision already.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see now.
Yeah.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go through all the BS about prompting. Pretty much you guys have been prompting for 3 years, because you guys picked it up in high school. University faculty have been prompting for 2.5 years. We are 6 months behind you guys. What's happened is the field has changed so fast with large neural networks and the compute time in data centers that prompt engineering has been overtaken by the technology. So I'll give you this. By the way, stick with Jeremy Utley on this. I wasn't kidding. Those 17 lessons that he's got there are excellent. The guy is a wizard with prompting. A lot of it's common sense, but there's some pretty effective tricks involved. And that's going to be your gold standard. And get on his mailing list. I can't copy and paste those emails that he sends us. We've been on the list for a while. Obviously copyright. Okay, so just get on that list, and Jeremy's doing a good job out there. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through the standard stuff here, and we'll chat about whether or not it's still effective. The bottom line is pretty simple. It's difficult to remember, but it's very simple. It's how much you put into it. Number one. But see, if you have a lot of subject area expertise, like you're a business professional, then you'll know when you're getting garbage back. That's not a problem. If you're just going to do copy and paste, then you're in the realm of undergraduate students. So it all depends on what you put into it. Number one, given the fact that you're supposed to know something, now there may be topics that you guys want to do, like my department head, Uzma was telling me this morning that she and our administrative assistant put together a trip. They were our administrative assistant was going to go on a trip with her husband, and they wanted GPT to set up an itinerary. We worked through some constraints and that sort of thing, but that's when you don't know jack. It's quite possible if you guys want to get involved with one of the large language models, you don't know anything. Well, tell it that. So, that's your input. The second thing is treat it like college. I'm not kidding. Do not treat this like a search engine. You're going to come out with very sparse results. So, when it says here, understand the desired outcome, that's fine unless you're in a brand new topic area. We have a real problem now in our project management classes because these new tools, these new large language models, the latest versions of them, will do project management for you. I told you they'll do intermediate accounting. I wasn't kidding. Guys, if they'll do protein folding, they'll do business school stuff. So understand the desired outcome. Okay, that's fine. What you want to achieve, what you should know, anything, that's perfectly fine unless you're in a situation where you don't know anything. So here's the deal here. Just an example. Notice all the context. A lot of times they're going to tell you to be brief. Don't. Give it context. The more context you give it, the better off you are. Now, in this particular case, you want a marketing strategy. They talk about what the coffee shop does. You want a 3-month plan. That's great. Bullet points. Formulate your response as an actionable plan. Okay. I've got all this context. This is one prompt. Does it mean that you have to be brief, what you're going to hear? No, you do not. You got a goal statement. You got parameters that you gave it. You want to structure the output. You can ask for bullet points. A lot of these large language models will default to bullets. If you don't want bullets, just tell it to give you prose. Okay. Now, GPT loves the word delve. D-E-L-V-E. If you ever see that, get rid of it. I mean, it's for some reason, I don't know. And they love hyphens. Okay, they give you a statement, hyphen, something else in there, hyphen instead of commas and stuff. You guys know enough to rewrite that. But so you give it the parameters, you give it the output form, you give it constraints and context, that's great. And again, you've got, here's what you want back, that's fine. The format, these systems do work with simple direct requests. That went away the dodo in 2024. Okay, we've gone way past simple direct requests. If that's what you have, that's fine. If you do not have a simple request, that's fine too. Now, if you do have a complex request, you have two options. Well, you have multiple. You can just put a complex request in there and see what happens. Or you can tell it, here's your request or here's your problem, whatever, and say, give it to me in structured format. Okay, give it to me step by step. That's very important if you really don't know what you're doing. So as far as the problem you're dealing with. So complex request will benefit from detailed, carefully structured queries. That's fine, but you guys have already winged it. You've already been in situations where you're just like, I have no idea what's going on. So it really works out great if you tell it to give it to you step by step. Now, this is key, act like A. You can assign your large language model any role. Colleague. It might be very helpful if you wanted to act like a colleague to say, I'm in human resources at a Fortune 50 company, or I'm in marketing for a 1,000-bed hospital or something. So act like a colleague. You can ask it to act like your boss. You can ask it to act like one of your direct reports. That is really key. Also, you can tell it to act positively or negatively. Analyze this critically. Analyze this positively. Give me the pros and cons. That really is great. Now, if you come up with something and you've been prompted for a while, you've kept your prompt stream, and you've come up with what you think is pretty good, and especially if you're an advanced model, if you're paying $20 a month, log out, log back in, feed that document back to it, and say, be critical. Or go to another large language model, say you're running from GPT to Claude, feed GPT into Claude and say, be critical. It's kind of interesting what it'll come up with. I do this all the time on split screens. I'm very interested, and you'll sit there and you'll go, well, some of it's really ticky and some of it's pretty good. Okay, and then here's all this stuff about, this is context, here's your objective, this particular case you want to look for market entry, and then notice, format your response as a professional consulting report. So you are a seasoned, I love seasoned, business strategy consultant. I'm a seasoned professor, okay? I would just say experienced. And then give it. Okay, so we got the role and the objective and so forth. Clear, specific, we talked about that. You do not have to be clear. You do not have to be specific if you're getting started in a brand new topic area. You know what you're doing, you've been doing this for a while, then you can be clear and specific. Oh, by the way, this comes, if you don't know a lot, you're going to be vague up here. Then as you come along down your prompt stream, you can get more specific. So this is looking for competitive analysis. Okay. Now, what I want to do here is describe what company I'm in. For each competitor, do this. If you'll notice, this particular one, let's see here. Okay, it's given a comprehensive competitive analysis. I would go ahead and say, what's really fascinating here, you could say, here's what we're in. Act like a marketing analysis or a strategic analysis or a consultant from one of the big four, that sort of thing. Okay. Okay, this is important. If you're going to give a complex task, what I would do is go step by step almost every time. Give it to me in bullet forms. It's very helpful to watch how the model works its way through. That works out really fine, especially because you may end up splitting up these tasks to get more detail. One thing is you guys have already run into, you will get boatloads of output. You have to be very careful. It's not hard to turn out 20 or 30 pages, oh man, within an hour. So you've got some work to do. You really do. If you're going to do this properly, you have to work through it, what it gives you. Don't worry about that. Now, you've got an initial prompt, and then it says choose your words carefully. Okay, that's fine. Colorful language, metaphors, and slang. That to me is just so totally common sense. But ambiguity gets a little bit of a situation. I don't use ambiguity. What I do is I tell it, be as unpredictable as you can on this thing. Be as critical as you can. Give me something unpredictable. What have I missed? What am I not thinking about? That is an interesting thing when you say, an issue when you say, imagine you're both a customer and a competitor. Okay, so you're sitting here and you're going, what hidden weaknesses would you exploit that we're blind to? That's a great question. And it does work like a charm. Take the role of my professor. See what he or she will say on this document. Okay. If you're a doctoral student, hello, what a great deal. So that works fine. Open-ended questions, that's great. By the way, brainstorming is critical. You guys know this. And you've got all sorts of any number of things that you could brainstorm that either you know stuff about or you don't. By the way, if you get into corporate strategy, this is when being a business professional really comes home to roost. Okay, because you're going to be strategizing with these models. Of course, we talked about context naturally. Oh, examples. Okay. Examples are very interesting, and you have to be very careful with examples that you do not feed examples in the model that are too similar, because the model is going to start learning only, it's going to be like overfitting. Examples are fine. Try to give it different examples. They call, you can do zero shot prompting, which is no examples, few shot prompting with a couple of examples, and then many shot prompting with many examples. If you do have examples, make sure they're different. It would be very helpful. Or you can give it a couple of examples and say, think up examples that are different, okay? Just like you're dealing with a colleague. What I usually do is just think I'm sitting across the table from my mentor in my doctoral program. Say, what would he think? What does this look like? What am I missing? Are my examples too close together? Conflicting terms, naturally. Punctuation gets interesting because the English language is rich in strange phrases. Write a response to the client who said, we cannot accept delivery on Tuesday. Okay? We cannot accept delivery, comma, then the response is on Tuesday. So, you guys understand about punctuation. That's great. Prompt length, that gets to be spooky. I never ask for the output goals. I never ask it to limit itself. I'll change the format around, but don't put a limit on that unless you absolutely need to. Prompt length, I don't worry about it. Y'all have any trouble with prompt length even on the free version?
Sometimes too many inputs, but that's.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you're going to drag and drop videos in there and all kind of PDFs and Word files and stuff, it may balk a little bit. I've not found that in the $20 a month versions. Test and revise. Okay. This is absolutely fascinating to me because it's very, very, very important. It requires work on your part on the front end, and during the process, you get to decide how many times you're going to go through and revise whatever your output is. Okay? You may get tired. You may think it's good enough. That's fine. But you get to figure out how much testing and revision you want to do. I would recommend make sure you do some every time you're looking for an answer. I like this, do not look for short answers. I've never seen generative AI get a short answer about anything. I think if y'all ever done this, it asks for, do you want to provide PowerPoint slides? I have found both these, the GPT and Claude and Gemini do really lousy PowerPoints. I mean, horrible. So I don't even, no, that's just something that doesn't even work for me. If you're generating a PowerPoint deck, you could try it. If you're under a time crunch, I don't recommend it. Oh, by the way, it will misspell, it will draw arrows in the wrong direction, it'll do double-headed arrows where you don't want them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm talking about on PowerPoint slides. Okay, everybody familiar with default temperatures on these models? We talked to y'all about that. Okay. All right, what they've got is a temperature setting. It's a lot of these tools. That controls the creativity. In other words, am I going to be deterministic or am I going to be creative? So you can change the temperature parameters in the model. So what you get, these generative systems have temperature settings, so-called. I should have put a quote around that. It controls the creativity of the responses, randomness. If you have a lower temperature, you have the responses are more deterministic. Notice, predictable, consistent outputs that can really stick to your training data. This is nicely done with factual responsive coding and precision is important. Okay, I don't recommend this, but when I'm doing anything that involves code, I just move the temperature setting down closer to 0. Because I want to know if that code's going to work. I have put it closer to 1, and the code gets really interesting. Okay. Now, if you do a higher temperature up to 1, you get randomness, you get diverse, more creative. The system's going to look at opinions, and what's fascinating is you get a heck of a lot more output here than you do up here. And this is fantastic for brainstorming. GPT, Gemini have these user-controlled temperatures, usually under advanced settings. Claude doesn't offer that right now. Don't do the same sequence each prompt, well, of course, but this is the standard stuff that's coming off the prompt engineering literature. Now, this comes across all the time. Somebody goes in, gives it a simple prompt, gets something back and goes, let's go with that. And of course, hallucination. If you don't check your work, got news for you, that's on you. Okay, so you really do need to check your outputs, even if you end up with 50 pages in an hour. So this is what we're looking at here. This is strictly innovation. This is wild hair stuff. Notice I want to explore, I want to ideate, develop new ideas. Here are just some examples. Is there anything I missed? What else should I consider? What are other industries doing that might be appropriate for me? These are prompts that would address ideation. I use 4 or 5 of those all the time. It's really interesting to me to apply that to what I'm doing. Validation and risk. Pitfalls, mitigation, how do we validate our assumptions to mitigate these risks? This is really interesting here. You got to give it your assumptions first, limitations and so forth. This gets fascinating. What are my blind spots? By the way, if you ask me what have I missed and what are my blind spots, what have you missed? You haven't put it down there yet. With your blind spots, it'll read what you've written already and say, this is where you're missing it. Okay, strategic planning. This is when you're starting from scratch. This is my strategy and what questions should I be asking, what are key factors and so forth. By the way, I'm going to give you guys all these slides. biggest strategic risk and so forth. This gets interesting. If you put something in there like key factors should we consider our strategic plan to gain a competitive advantage, and how should we weigh these factors in our decision-making process? You had better split that one up, or you are going to get a book written for you. Okay? Scenario analysis, we all do this. SWOT analysis, outcomes, market reaction, and so forth. By the way, it will grind on these things. Sometimes you can almost go to dinner and come back, but you will get quite a bit of work there. It'll bring up things you haven't thought of, which is very useful. Innovation, that's great. What resources, priorities, and that sort of thing. What you're doing is you're walking through how do I strategize and implement. Market insights. Now, this gets, this is a very good question here. What our customers need we're not currently providing. Verizon's having a lot of trouble right now with churn. And it would be fascinating to see what they're doing with one of the large language models to figure out why their pricing's off so bad and why people are hauling out of there. What are our customer pain points, adjacent market opportunities, et cetera. These are just really outstanding questions. Here's what you could do. I did this on one. I was looking at something like this. I just fed these 5 questions to GPT and Claude. And I said, are these questions the best questions to address that? If not, give me some more. And in 20 minutes, I had 20 more questions. Okay? And they were different. Okay. Organizational change. As we talked about in the UPS case back in the day, we're all going to have to handle organizational change, like it or not. And you get this. How do you empower your employees and so forth? Ask the woman who's CEO of Accenture right now. She has a real simple solution to organizational change. You either upskill or you're fired. Okay, that's the way it is. And she's put $900 million into Accenture to do that. Everybody's going to be AI in Accenture. That's a little stern, but this is the type of thing that you get to look at. These are all questions that, I tell you what, if you went to a search engine prior to generative AI and you say, I want to know how I can handle organizational change and foster a culture of innovation, you'd have to go to all those websites, some of which are textbooks, some of them are academic articles, and after days or weeks or months, you'd be in that group. So it's going to speed you up, no doubt about it. Technologies. If you really want to get into a stupid prompt, look at number 1 there. What new technology should we invest in? You have no context. It needs to know all about your company, what's your strategy, what's your mission, what is your competition doing, then ask it that, and so forth. Now, if you give it a technology, then you can ask these questions, which is kind of interesting because at the moment, we're having a breakthrough about every 2 or 3 days on quantum computing. And what everybody's spooked about is what happens when quantum and AI marry each other. In other words, quantum moves into neural networks. That's a really good question. It's like a disruption on top of a disruption. So it would be fascinating when you get into it. Matter of fact, GPT and I were talking about yesterday afternoon about just this topic, and it was talking about how the neural networks would be, and it put in there something like, I thought it was making a pun. It would be, I think it was using the word quantumized or something, but the fact is, it's almost like if you had 100 million nodes in a neural network and they all fired at once. Remember when we were talking about neural networks, you had feed forward, back propagation, and it kept cycling like this. What happens if it starts running all at once where all of them are firing? And that's going to be interesting. So when you say about technologies, Okay, we're at Auburn University. What new technology should we invest in? Better video equipment for the football team. No, the whole organization is different. College of business is different than college of engineering. So you got to give it context. Competitive analysis, of course, we're doing that all the time, constantly. If you'll notice, all this is very, very business professional oriented. And this is really interesting to me. Every prompt we've talked about in here for the last 20 minutes has been strictly business professional, not analysts and not data scientists. So when you see these slides, you'll have all these. Just use them as a starting point. Okay, don't worry about that. I'm not worried about roles. By the way, I'm not sure prompt engineering is a formal company job description right now. Maybe it's still in some companies. Okay, this is zero shot prompting, no specific examples. This is when you're winging it, which is great. Few shot, give it a few examples. Remember I told you they should be different. Chain of thought, look, you've got some reasoning task here, solving an equation, answering a riddle. What you've got to do is here, and they keep talking about when this was coming out, the very first time chain of thought, they were talking about how large language models couldn't handle math problems. Well, you guys know in the last 6 months they can. They can step through them. So this is what you're talking about. What you do is you tell the model to think out loud. Go through the process. Tell me how you're thinking. What is your thinking? Just give it to me step by step. So you tell it to think out loud and literally tell it this. Break down how you're solving this problem into subsets before generating the final answer. And you got two choices here. One is you can let it run all the way to the final answer or stop it at each substep. Now, boy, for the kids I talk to, high school and undergraduate, I tell them to make sure they stop at each substep. If you can't understand the first substep, the very first step in the process, it doesn't do you a bit of good to go to the second one. You guys know this. I don't care if it's accounting, marketing, high school algebra. They're not digging on it, so they've got to do it step by step. Tell it to wait on you, and it will. Okay. Now, prompt chaining, that's a little different. What are you going to do here? And all of you've done this already. You take the output from one prompt and use the input to the next. This is really great. All right, this is why you save your outputs and save your prompts. That way you'll know if you want to use it for input for your next prompt. Here's what's going to happen to you. You come up with something and it looks pretty good. You've been at it a couple hours. You've saved it all. You've got your prompt stream. You have the output. You've done your inputs with yourself working on the prompts and the outputs. Then you get a good night's sleep and you go at it the next morning. Now, you're going to use what you have, what you saved as your input for the next prompt. And when you start there, you'll be very surprised at all the new things that you'll get. Now, you can do this two ways. Number one, you've gotten tired, just going to keep the input process going. Number two, say, read that like I told you, and say, be very contrary. Make sure that you point out all the weak areas. Log off before you log in. Otherwise, it'll take you right back to where you were when you ended. That is very useful. In this particular case, what they're working their customer service agents, they want to understand the message, identify the issue type, generate an empathetic and accurate response, and summarize exchange for customer relationship management. What is this? That's an AI agent. Okay, handling a customer complaint. So we walk you through that, which is great. Then you get confusion here between prompt chaining and chain of thought. Both techniques are trying to improve output naturally. Notice, prompt chaining output from one, input for the next. Chain of thought uses a single longer prompt that you break down. So both of them are outstanding. You get to decide. And we've got those examples to you. That, like I said, that was an agent. Meta prompting, this is where, when we first started doing prompt engineering, everybody forgot, and the models weren't that good, but they are now. Ask it to write better prompts. Just say, are my prompts worth anything? Are they doing any good? Be contrary, be contradictory, be critical. What's a better prompt to use to get at what I'm trying to? This is especially good if you're stumbling around in the weeds for about an hour. You think it's about time to have a nice Cabernet, and you just say, just tell me what's a better prompt is. It'll tell you. Believe me, it'll tell you. Now, this is interesting. If I don't know anything about depreciation accounting. I will tell you, I barely got through the single accounting class in my life. So I don't know this. So for me, this is not an ineffective prompt at all. It's like one of you guys saying, explain taking out a wisdom tooth. That'd be an ineffective prompt for me, but not for you. So this is fine for me. It's not so good for an accountant. So if you're an accountant, you give it this prompt. That's what I was telling you. It's not bad to wing it. Help with capital budgeting. There it is. It's not ineffective for me, but it is for them. Marketing. Your marketing people do this, and I think this is probably an ineffective prompt anyway, but if you're a student trying to study, you give it just a little bit of context here and say, let's talk about a campaign. So my point is, these are very general, not a lot of context. Roughly, you could consider them ineffective, but not unless you're a professional in that area. So I don't want you to get thrown off there. Now, this gets interesting because employee onboarding, we're in the HR world, and naturally, we have a pretty good idea, all of us understand about onboarding. Y'all are getting ready to go through it anyway. And this is for the HR professional. How do we improve our supply chain? I would say that is roughly ineffective because it doesn't give the model enough to go on. An ineffective prompt, if you're not a supply chain person, is explain supply chain management. So here's all the stuff that supply chain professionals do. Not unusual. Sales data for you analytics folks, same thing. By the way, if you type in analyze our sales data, you're going to have to give it a spreadsheet. You got to give it something. And then choosing a new system for the MIS folks. That is pretty much, bless you.
Thank you.
I think we've got to a point now where if you'll ask the models to help improve your prompts, meta prompting, you'll be in good shape. Okay, number one. Number two, if you don't just copy and paste. Okay. Well, the good news is you guys now know everything I know about AI. I mean, look, you're in here from August to December. Okay, so this is last class day. Any questions? Oh, I had one over here. The question is, can you just, when you send your stuff in, would I iterate? Yeah, if there's something wrong, no problem. We can go back and forth. Okay. Yeah.
I have one question. So when you ask someone to design a photo, does AI like using the actual or copyrighted logos or not? Because it seems like sometimes it manipulates. Like if you say Nike, are they allowed to
designing a logo? Is that
like if you say, can you create something with Nike? Are they allowed? Is Chat and all them allowed to use
company logos are copyrighted?
Because it seems like they're all manipulated. So they're really not supposed to.
Okay. They're really not supposed to, but that'd be a nice gray area. You know, if you really want to know, I had somebody that insists on going to law school, and she got in, she'd been accepted, and I think I've got her talked into going into 3 years of law school and then a master's, and there are a couple of masters in AI programs that apply to law because there's going to be some really interesting issues coming out in that area. Yeah, you have to be very careful about copyright. But remember, once again, the detection engines, false positives, you'll never prove it. You know, so good luck in court on that one. And by the way, last week, 2 more lawyers got disbarred that hit the news for using AI to generate court filings. And those things were hallucinated. How much fun would that be?
People
Judges,
are leaning on it way too much.
I can't believe they're using it
Mm-hmm.
and then not looking for hallucinations.
I had somebody the other day, they were showing a PowerPoint in my department, and the PowerPoint, they made it through AI, and there were parts of it that like did not make any sense. They're like, oh, ignore this part, it's ChatGPT. I'm like, should have looked at it before you presented it.
Absolutely.
We'll see where we are. I
So
mean,
that was you played that one video and said Connecticut scan for CT scan.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It's really great. And you look at that and you go, gosh, I'll give you all a little, y'all help me with this real quick and we'll call it a semester. By the way, I'm gonna put these prompting PowerPoints up here just in case they're of use to you guys.
I've had the real fortune of
Little background on Eric. He's a 30-year outstanding board certified fellow in cardiology.
working in scripted research for the last
This has nothing to do with generative AI here. This is conventional AI, which is 90% of it.
17 years. It's the largest nonprofit biomedical institution in the country. And I've watched some of my colleagues who have spent 2 to 3 years to define the crystal 3D structure of a protein. Well, now that can be done in 2 or 3 minutes. And that's because of the work of AlphaFold, which is a derivative of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, and John Jumper, recognized by the American Nobel Prize in September. What's interesting, this work, which is taking the amino acid sequence in one dimension and predicting the 3-dimensional protein at atomic level, is now inspired many other of these protein structure prediction models, as well as RNA and antibodies, and even being able to pick up all the missense mutations in the genome. And even being able to come up with proteins that have never been invented before, that don't exist in nature. Now, the only thing I think about this is it was a transformer model, we'll talk about that in a moment, in this award. Since Demis and John and their team of 30 scientists don't understand how the transformer model works, shouldn't the AI get an asterisk as part of that award?
You broke it.
I tell you what, last class day, I break the system. I have no idea just how fakey this is.
Important security message. Your computer has been locked up. Your IP address was used without your knowledge or consent to visit websites that contains identity theft virus. To unlock the computer, please call support immediately.
It's kind of interesting because that's a TED Talk coming on YouTube. Okay. It's been great. We don't have to worry about that. I'll have to talk to Hornbuckle about that one. There's so much swirly stuff going on with this system right now. You know,
Something's going on.
guys, happy holidays. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah.